The following story we will tell you will touch your heart, and we decided to tell it exactly as the baby's mother said it. It started on May 14th, 2018. My husband and I were thrilled to have our first daughter in just a few hours. We had recently had a son 17 months prior, so it was a pleasant surprise. We had a great time driving to the hospital that day. I'm waiting for our beautiful baby girl. When we arrived at the hospital, we were told we would be delayed. We were disappointed, but kept waiting for the nurses to say it was time. We waited, looking at pictures of our child, imagining our ideal girl. The obstetrician said we were having a healthy baby girl. A nurse arrived shortly after we were ordered to wait. She invited us back. We arrived on time. Our girl was on her way. A repeat C-section was required due to a previous C-section and placenta. Haley was also 3 weeks and a day early due to previous illness. I was taken to the OR to prepare for surgery. It felt like a lifetime waiting to hold my baby. Because my son was in the intensive care unit, I could not hold him immediately after birth. Finally, we were ready. The nurses sat my husband next to me. I felt his penetrating pressure. I asked the anesthesiologist if the baby was about to come. Then I heard a scream. Finally, I could hold her and kiss her. Paul was there. The nurses passed her and everything seems to be going well. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, 19.5 inches. The surgeon was joking with the nurses. That made me happy. My baby must be doing well, or they wouldn't be so happy, I thought. Then I noticed the nurse passing Hall was stalling. What was he looking for? I looked at him. What are they hiding from us? I want my baby. Your daughter is having difficulty breathing, so I'll take her to the intensive care unit. I told my husband, who will stay by her side. She was sick. Suddenly, my joy turned to dread. To see her, I waited an hour after I was stitched up for someone to come talk to me. When my husband finally came in, he commented, "She's not normal." What did that mean? He said her ears were low and her head was shaped like a cone, as if she had been born vaginally. And what if she was sick? I just wanted to see her. The anesthesia would wear off, and in 12 hours, unless I regained enough leg movement to get into a wheelchair. Soon, I was on my way to the intensive care unit. She is so beautiful, I thought. I didn't care about her differences. I adored my baby. How could I not adore that innocent face? When I heard Pfeiffer syndrome, I panicked and ran straight to the internet, which is never a good idea. The results were frightening. I was worried about losing my baby. Princess 7-day-old baby dies from Pfeiffer syndrome. Our world has been turned upside down. His head was shaped like a clover due to some type of craniosynostosis called cloverleaf deformity. No one in our hospital had ever seen or heard of it. It was the first case in our county. This was all new to everyone. To find out what Hall had, they had to transmit a snapshot to a larger, more experienced hospital. The heaviest and scariest period of my life, we would go visit Hall in the intensive care unit every 2 hours to feed her, but I longed to take her home, meet her brother, and finally touch her adorable little body. Hall was only in the intensive care unit for 8 days. Although most babies in the intensive care unit are premature and require much more time, we were also fortunate that he went home so early, given his diagnosis. Her stay in the ICU was difficult. She wanted to watch everything she ate, so I had to use a bottle. She was stressed, shocked, tired, and not eating, so she was not producing milk. It was explained to us that they were going to fly her to a hospital, a bigger hospital with more doctors. I didn't want to leave my daughter, so I wanted to be discharged immediately. I had 36 hours to go, so I did. They resolved not to fly her until it was a life or death scenario. This happened 2 more times. Why couldn't they decide? I didn't understand why they were making us suffer. Why all the back and forth? Then a Pfeiffer support group on Facebook one night. It was because of my daughter that I met one of the most amazing moms out there, and she had a 2-year-old with Pfeiffer syndrome. She only lived 2 hours away, which was fantastic. I never expected to meet a baby with this syndrome. She introduced us to her daughter's neurosurgeon and his team. We are so thankful that he is her doctor. He's amazing at what he does. He's kind and loves these kids. Plus, he works at a very nearby hospital. That's perfect. We told the ICU doctor that was the only place we wanted Hall to be treated. Even though we saw that he was the right person for Hall, he would have had to stay. We let him in. We wanted only the best for our baby. Fortunately, our baby girl did not need to be moved. Instead, at 8 days, we were thrilled to be home with our baby and cherished every moment. We had heard she would be spending time in the hospital. Her brother fell in love with her the instant I walked in with her. I had never seen anything so beautiful, never been held like that. We went to the hospital a few days after she came home and they evaluated her brain and decided to do surgery right away to relieve her pressure. She was scheduled for her operation on June 21, 2018. My daughter surprised me the first month. Why her? How am I going to take care of her? I didn't feel prepared or powerful enough, like a bad dream I couldn't wake up from. Then I felt like I was suffering the loss of a child, that my sweet baby had to go through all these procedures and made me cry in her room. Soon after, I snapped out of it and realized that this was my life now. She was the most beautiful girl that she was chosen to care for and has been one of the biggest blessings in my life. She is sweet, cheerful, and healthy. Yes, she has issues, many hospitalizations, surgeries, and so on, but having her in our lives is worth it. Remorse caught me a few weeks later. I was furious as I held her, furious that I wasn't informed of her syndrome and that my OB didn't have her undergo a growth scan. Maybe we would have found it if I had. Most of all, I was furious that I couldn't enjoy her first month. Things would have been different if I had known. Worst of all, it wasn't her fault. I felt like I was pushing her away and now I'm wasting my time. You don't understand until it occurs to you. We enjoyed the time to us at home before her first surgery. Her family came to greet her. We went for walks, played in the park. She was adored. We didn't take her out much because we didn't want her to get sick and delay the surgery. She was the ideal baby. Asleep, she let us cuddle her. It was great to finally be a family. We were having so much fun together and loved our new family that the thought of our little girl having surgery broke our hearts. We were scared, not sure what to do. 5 weeks came, so I got the kids ready and fed them. While my husband went to pick up our son from my parents' house, we would take Hall later that day. After Hall left the OR, we put Hall in the car and drove over 2 hours to the hospital. Quick check-in, that's where we waited. We talked to nurses, anesthesiologists, and doctors. We seemed to be waiting forever. Our little girl had been hungry for almost 6 hours due to the anesthesia, and she was not happy. It hurt not to be able to feed her. After 2 hours, nurses arrived with their labs, poked her at least 5 times trying to find a suitable vein. Her screams made me cry. My precious baby didn't deserve this. They found a vein and Hall had a minute to breathe. We were taken to the operating room where we had to say goodbye for 2 hours. It was great to meet our new friends and fellow Pfeiffer family members. We can't thank them enough for their help so far. The operating nurse called to say that Hall is doing well and that they would come to get me once he woke up. The doctor came out and praised her. She wasn't on oxygen and was breathing on her own, which is huge for our babies with this syndrome. That was great. They had removed her entire skull and she would recover in a few months. He had left the bone right at the back of her head so she could lie on her back. A nurse followed him and took us to see our darling baby. I couldn't wait to kiss her. I could see our precious little angel in her bed. Her anesthesia had left her tired, but she was doing well that day and was dazzling. This little girl is the toughest person I have ever met, and she was only 5 weeks old. I couldn't wait to be able to hold her and be her mommy. She went to her room when she was ready and my parents arrived as well as my son who I missed. She kissed her brother and ran off to play and scream like a little boy. After the nurses checked her vitals, I was able to have her. She was awake enough to eat and cuddle. Fortunately, I only had to stay 2 days in the hospital. I handled the surgery well. We were home with our baby in no time. Later that month, we went with our baby girl for an MRI and exam. We discovered she had hydrocephalus, a common symptom of Pfeiffer syndrome. Her head was swollen and she needed surgery quickly. On about September 7th, at about 4 months of age, Hall had her second operation to insert something in her head. It has been a great help. She's noticeably happier and no longer uncomfortable from the pressure on her head. The bone in the back of her head, which causes tissue to expand into the spinal cord, in November is scheduled to be removed. It can also cause brain damage, speech problems, and sleep problems. His surgeon fixed the problem before it damages anything, for which we are grateful. He's always on top of things, and here we are. Nothing will ever affect my view of my daughters, and I never wanted to change her. Her differences make her unique and wonderful. If you like this story, don't forget to like the video and share it with your friends.